One of the things that I'm fascinated by in this moment we find ourselves is the power of language and
Mhm.
the way that we as people, and not necessarily just Democrats, but independents and Republicans who don't like the way the country is going, how we should use language to remind people of who we are and who this country is.
I think about this all the time. This is about bringing more people onto our side. That's how I think about policy. That's how I think about politics. That's how I think about everything as a roadmap to how we get out of this moment. So I was watching in this moment, Christianity was being weaponized by people in Moms for Liberty groups. They were pushing for book bans. They were targeting DEI and diverse curricula, uh, and that was so antithetical to how I was raised. I was raised in the Catholic Church. My mom taught CCD. Catholicism is by no means perfect. Certainly, there's a lot that it needs to fix, but there was an aspect of what I was raised to believe that is about works. Faith without works is dead. And you have to look out for your neighbors and people who have less and use your blessings to make things a little easier for other people. And I wanted to take that back because somehow we had given up the position of moral clarity to people who were using it to hurt people. So when I was thinking about who I was targeting, it wasn't everybody, but I was talking to people who maybe were like me and maybe looked at what was happening in our country and thought, well, I'm not gay and this doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to say anything about it. Or I'm not black and this doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to say anything about it. And I am not being attacked by these policies, so I'm not going to say anything about it. It's on us. It is on the majority. And I believe that a majority of Americans are decent people who believe in the vision of America, that if we don't use our voices, we can't expect the small minorities of people to stand up for themselves if they're doing it alone. So I always try to speak in the language of the audience. The people who don't already agree with us, but the people who don't, how do we bring them into our world? Which is why I talked about growing up in the church and who I was and my mom, that I graduated from Notre Dame, that, I was inspired by Father Ted Hesburgh, who was incredibly active in the civil rights movement, locking arms with Martin Luther King Jr. I talked about all of that to think maybe if I can present a different version to somebody else who's sitting on the sidelines right now and inspire them to get off the sidelines, recognizing just because it doesn't affect us doesn't mean it's not our responsibility.